Dang. Invite. Can you hear me?
Hi there.
Hey,
How are ya?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm very well.
It's not showing the Heather page yet.
Yeah, it gets a little glitchy sometimes with these lives and getting the hang of hang of the TikTok.
This is my first time, so
Well, welcome.
yeah.
Welcome.
I'm not overly excited about it because I don't like technology.
It's what all the kids are doing these days,
You
just
know,
try to stay ahead of the curve with all this.
listen, I'm gonna tell you. So I'm a professor, right?
Right.
And I was talking. I'm doing a project with some of my students, some of my old students, and wait, I think she just came up. Okay, yes.
Awesome.
Did it
Sometimes
work?
sometimes it takes a few seconds for people to join. There she comes.
There she comes. Okay. So I was talking to them about TikTok and I was like, you guys, like we need to like help each other out on this. And I go and I look and I've got like exponentially more followers than them. And I'm like, how is this even happening? You guys are like, this young generation and I'm the one who's I don't get it.
It happens. Yeah. Everyone that's joined from Natalie's community, thank you so much for being here. Make sure to tap and get the ratings up here so we can get some more people up in here.
Listen, I'm so excited to be talking about this stuff openly because it is one of those things that um, it the further I go down the rabbit hole, like the worse it becomes.
Oh, preaching to the choir here.
I know. Can you hear? I see.
Yes.
Okay.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, Mary.
How are
Hey,
you?
I'm good. How are y'all?
I'm good.
Doing
Good.
well. Mary and
Good,
I just
good.
wrapped up like an hour-long conversation right before this.
I've been playing putt putt mini golf today for my son's birthday.
Love it. Happy birthday to your son.
uh,
Yes.
we had our birthdays back to back. So mine was last Sunday and then his was Friday. And so we got together, everybody today and we went and did, mini golf and stuff like that today. So it was a lot of fun.
Oh, happy belated birthday to you.
Thank you. I'm on the countdown to 50 now and I'm really excited about it.
Love it. Golden Girls version 2.0 whenever you're ready. Let's go.
Listen, you know what? I have a group of girls from high school that I still talk to all the time. And one of the things that I was telling them, I was like, listen, I'm all for like us getting some property and let's just go ahead and start our community.
There you go.
I'm so here for it.
Totally agreed.
Um, I don't even know where to start.
Yeah, I mean, we have all angles to work with here, many things to talk about. I know that we kind of introed you into Natalie's community a little bit, and we have just been we've had some really profound breakthroughs over the past, really, I feel like over the past month. And I mean, I've been in Natalie's case, kind of the official family advocate, working with the DA's office. They closed the case clearly in December 14th, if I'm not mistaken, 2022. They didn't basically stated that we just don't have enough probable cause or evidence to prove a crime had been committed. And I know we haven't spoken in quite some time, but I had actually reached back out to the DA's office last week, in fact, with some pretty bombshell testimony that we have learned about the detective over Natalie's case and how corruption could actually be present in that. As well, we have now, there was a much older male that we also deemed as a person of interest in Natalie's case,
Nice.
allegedly a millionaire, military background, lived locally, takes in all these broken home white girls and street boys. And we have an eyewitness that Natalie had back in 2019 before she vanished on July the 4th, 2020. Natalie had created a private group, a private Facebook group where she basically started vlogging and just kind of one part trying to free herself, one part trying to help the next girl. And she talked about this man that I just mentioned and what he did to her at age 16. And I've been doing a lot of, our whole community really, we've all been doing a lot of behind the scenes investigative kind of amateur journalist approach type work to get testimonies from people and just hearing people's stories. And we have an eyewitness that saw this video of him in a motel room with not one, not two, not three, but 3 to 4 young girls. And the DA's office said, sorry, I don't know what you want me, it seems like a pass the hot potato situation going on with the DA's office. We've also recently caught the detective falsifying official documents. And the DA's office said, well, maybe he needed to do that. We're also missing credible evidence that was taken on Natalie's computer that the DA is saying, or the detective is stating, oh, it's in the case file from the DA's office. And I'm like, sir, we've gotten that back from the DA's office when they closed the case. It's not in there. So what was on that computer? They're scurrying around Heard County right now. So it's been quite stressful. But I had a federal agent on CC, have heard nothing about that so far, but they're typically pretty quiet when they're working on things. So I'm just fingers and toes crossed for Natalie. She has an incredibly powerful story to tell, and is super data rich in her videos and posts and stuff like that. So we're fighting, and we're continuing to fight. And we've got the Vanish podcast coming out very soon. They're still waiting on FOIAs to come back from the GBI medical examiner, Heard County, and the DA's office. I think she got them back from the DA's office. And then, so we've got some projects going on, but we're all just worn out and just so desperately want justice, and for all this potential corruption to be exposed, because the people in these towns know about it. They talk behind the scenes, but they're scared to speak up publicly because, these are people running around with badges and manipulating their power, allegedly, for legal reasons. So that's just where we are with Natalie's case.
Oh, that doesn't surprise me. And it's really sad. And especially because one of the things that I was actually talking with a friend of mine, Jennifer, if she ever gets on, I told her that I would invite her because she's been helping me kind of work on these things too. And one of the things I was telling her, I was like, I said, have you thought about FOIA-ing this? And she was like, you can do that. I was like, there's so much stuff that you can do. And so I was telling her, I said, I should do like a whole talk on this one day, because maybe if there's a whole slew of FOIAs that just start, falling in, maybe it'll be like, somebody slips up and gives something. I don't know if I've ever told you this, Mary, but there was a case in Kentucky where the guy, he was in prison for wanton murder. They said, you shot your buddy execution style. And he was like, no, I did not. He said it was a struggle. And do you know that he continued to FOIA on his case for 10 years? And he finally ended up getting somebody who slipped up and sent him back something he didn't have before. And that was the autopsy x-ray. And it sure enough showed that there was a struggle with the gun, and that it had gone in through the side of the head instead of in the back. And they withheld that, and it was a Brady violation and all this other stuff. And they told him, they said, well, then you need to retry him. They said, well, we can't retry him. We destroyed the gun and the knife. And so they said, well, then you've got to let him out. There's no choice. But it took 10 years of, dedication to going in and getting those files. And unfortunately, for cases like Natalie, for Heather, for so many others, they're not alive to do their own research. They're relying on, other people to do it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We have Mary, I'll chime in here, with Natalie's community in particular, and even seeing all the families, like, Mary and I connecting, and all these communities coming together. I mean, we've got the Bermuda Triangle of the South now, and all of those communities, Olivia Fowler, Lauren Henderson, I mean, found dead, or excuse me, unalived at a commissioner's home. She got zero media coverage. Zero. Like, that should be like, that's TMZ of the South quality right there. But, just all of these families, it's like, it's gonna take all of us. And I think that people are starting to realize that now, that we're unfortunately growing in numbers with each of these cases and each of these victims and their families. And these communities, they're resilient. So, I mean, they've picked us all up when we didn't think we could carry on anymore. Wouldn't you say, Mary?
Absolutely. I mean, it takes a village. That saying, it takes a village, and that's exactly every person on a Facebook page or a support page is a voice for the voiceless. And it does take every single person involved. Just like you today, Amy. I really appreciate you going live, and inviting us in, because it takes all of us to talk about the situation, and it's going to take all of us to make a change going forward, if that makes sense.
Right. Oh, no, it does. Well, and Mary, this. Part of the thing that, about like Heather's case is that, you know, I'm in Paulding County, and I start seeing all these other things that are popping up with Paulding County. And then it's like, what's going on here? We've got like this pandemic going on.
Yeah, I mean, there's Heather's case is definitely. I mean, it's 100%. Um, it's going on 7 years. For those who are tuning in that don't know about Justice for Heather Turner, Justice for Heather Turner on Facebook. I think it's Justice for Natalie Jones on Facebook. The Bermuda Triangle of the South on Facebook. Um, but Heather, May 4th, 2017, uh, died by a gunshot to the head, and was found in her master bathroom with the shower running, stepping out of the shower naked with her hair wet. And the police were in and out in 3.5 hours. There was not a crime scene tape. The family was allowed back into the house, and then it was May 17th before they came in to start collecting evidence. Well, when you die May 4th and you come in, 13 days later, May 17th, to try to collect evidence, there's just not, I mean, there's ample opportunity if it was not an unaliving, if it was something other than that. um, all the evidence is gone, in my opinion. Um, it's just, I think that there were some mistakes made on Heather's case. Um, but going on 7 years, it's an open case. Her death is ruled, cause of death is gunshot to the head, but her case is ruled undetermined, as you know, Amy and Jen, both of y'all know. Um, and it just doesn't make sense. It's either the one thing the family has repeatedly asked is either call it an unaliving and close the case, and if you can't do that, then go ahead and either arrest somebody, which there is no person of interest listed. Let's be clear about that. They will not name a person of interest, even though her supposed husband and daughter were the only ones in the house at the time that it happened, early morning hours. Um, Either arrest someone and let the jury, in a court of law, determine what's going to happen with it. Close the case or proceed with it, one way or the other. Um, And that's the main thing the family's asking so that they can get closure. Jen, do you want to talk about just a little bit on Natalie about her
Wait,
case?
can I
Oh,
step in
sorry.
1 second? Hey,
Sure.
Robin, I saw you pop in. Robin Martinelli, I saw her pop in. She is a Georgia investigator, FYI, and she might be interested in helping on some of this too, in case you guys need somebody to ever help on anything. She's very nice.
Robin, it's I just like exhaled very deeply. Lovely to meet you. Hi, Robin.
Hi, Robin. Nice to meet you. This is
Um,
Mary with Justice for Heather.
Oh, Robin's not the one that's up there. That's Jennifer. She's the one who's been helping me with the research too.
Okay.
Um, I wonder. I don't know. I don't know if Robin can come up.
Well, hey there, Jennifer, and hi, Robin, in the comments.
Yes, Robin in the comments. That works.
There we go. I'll see if she can come. I sent her an invite. I actually met her through um, working on the At Kid case. I hate having to use other words than what it is, but it's the Atlanta child murders case. Um, but I met her through that. And so we have an interesting background there with that. But yeah, she's local and she's got a lot of experience and stuff like that. So these might be something that interests her um, because, this is kind of like her area as well.
Well, we're so glad that everyone's tuning in, Robin, you especially, but everyone. We're so thankful for everyone who's come on this live to just learn a little bit about the cases. Or if you have questions, that's another big thing. If anybody has questions, now would be a great time to put them in the comments, and we'll see if we could answer some.
Absolutely.
Um, or whatever you're thinking, Amy. I'm not trying to overstep.
The one thing that I've been thinking about more and more. Again, I've said that I'm a professor, and I'm all about teaching my students about the law and stuff like that. And what really gets me is it feels hard to teach people how the law is supposed to work and to not be able to see that that's how the law is working, if that makes sense. And over the past week, I mean, I know you know this, Mary, but there have been so many other things that have, been unveiled, especially about Paulding County and stuff like that, that it's disheartening. It's really disheartening. And then when you start looking at all the stuff with the Bermuda Triangle of the South and you look at how women we're not protected. And then all of a sudden, this other woman pops up today. I don't know who can talk about this because I only saw the little bit of it. But the woman in Paulding County whose husband was ruled, you know, she was arrested. It's like the same type of situation. I don't understand. I just don't understand.
I okay, Kathy. I see a question. Why has AT never been questioned? Uh, Kathy, I don't have an answer for you on that. I know that we have pursued for almost 7 years now, been in contact with a detective. We have done a lot of freedom of information requests. We have gotten a few documents at the beginning that were public documents, but now anything related to her case, we are told they will not release. And as for they won't give us an answer. They just said that they have invited him to come in, and he has chosen not to. So he has never been officially questioned. But if you read his book, he talks about he was questioned that morning, and I mean his book has got a very different story to it
I have
than
that on standby, by the way, in case we need it.
awesome, great job.
I came prepared.
You did. Thank you, Miss Amy. Thank you, Miss Amy. Um, I believe that happened a couple of years ago, but the story was just revealed. Um,
Oh.
which case are you talking about?
So, are you talking about the woman that I was just talking about? I think that's what she's referring to.
The woman you were just talking about, I think the what that said that there was back in 2020 there was a woman who um it was a gunshot to the head to her husband, and it was just from what little bit I read today. It was they questioned it. Investigators questioned it once they came on scene and got an autopsy. Had GBI do an autopsy. Right, the lady she mentioned, Paulding. That's the story I'm talking about right now. And they arrested her for a homicide. She was charged with multiple charges of homicide, and but it was the same similar situation as Heather Turner's case. Um, and somebody earlier asked the question of what is the difference between the two cases, investigating wise? What did they investigate different between these two cases? Because it's the same Paulding County Sheriff's Department out of Georgia, and I don't know the answers to that.
Either. The only thing I can think of is a connection to somebody in the government.
There you go. And that in turn, speaking government on that, um, then we've got Jen, who's got justice for Natalie Jones here. She's representing Natalie's community, and I think Jen, correct me if I'm wrong, but there you've been able to find a trail
Oh,
in Natalie's case going up towards
I mean,
government level.
there's a point, right? Like in the beginning of, I've never followed a true crime case. It's not my cup of tea. I don't find it healthy mentally. But I was so drawn to Natalie, and it's like, it was pandemic. You gotta think back to this. It's 2020, July 4th, cute Georgia girl next door, gorgeous smile, vanishes coming back from Alabama to Georgia in a hot pink 2002 Chevy Cavalier. Like that, I mean, that within itself is just like super taboo. It's like, okay, how does that happen? And then, the buildup of the case, she wasn't found until, like, not spotted, not found, her car, her body, nothing until 2 days. Like I don't think it was a full 48 hours after. There's a popular YouTube million plus follower search and recovery dive crew. They're crowdfunded, travel around the country, and they help look for missing and unalive people that have just vanished without a trace. And so they get out on lakes and ponds and rivers and creeks and waterways and whatnot. And so they had announced like a week or so before they came into town that they were coming into town. And they showed up in Heard County, which again, Murdaugh case vibes, Bible Belt, good old boy network, good old boy system. And then poof, her car is spotted by a bush hogger and she's found. Phone missing, sunglasses missing. She was barefoot, her flip flops, and her very last Snapchats that she had. All of these missing items. DA's office says, well, maybe she was high and wanted to wander out to this random, property that's ironically owned by a former assistant district attorney, retired now, active bar status, who doesn't even live anywhere near there. His nephew, he hired that very day to bush hog the property. And yeah, I mean, it was just, the whole thing is weird. But getting into government and all of that, very, very, like, we're past the twilight zone. We're in it, right? Government connections. So we can, I mean, let's see if I can do a rapid fire. Natalie's most recently connected, like her most recent ex-boyfriend, he was going through a lot of legal woes in 2020 after he and Natalie broke up. So they broke up at the tail end of 2019. Natalie left, and he starts to snowball or spiral from February of 2020 is when it all started up until she vanished. Basically, you're talking sweet tart trafficking. I don't know if I can say that word. Sweet tart dealing, like all kind of stuff. Well, he was actually incarcerated for pretty much the whole summer up until a week and a half before Natalie vanished. So, in the opening remarks of the transcript, in comes his counsel. Well, his counsel is none other than a Georgia senator who was specifically requested by his father. And in his opening remarks, the senator states, "Oh, I haven't thought of JL in years. I formerly represented him in a case that he had regarding sweet tarts or something in college." And I was like, that was my first initial WTF moment. I was like, how does this middle class print shop owner have a senator friend? Right? Little weird.
Right.
Well, Natalie, this politically connected tech ex, he is, I would consider him above average tech guru in a sense. He was trying to get off the ground, a kind of rural Wi-Fi for all business, where he would go and use existing towers and put his technology on this tower. And the end goal here was to have their own towers in all of these counties surrounding the Bermuda Triangle of the South, to be able to provide better options for Wi-Fi in these rural areas where they just have crappy reception. Well, take it over. I former legal background here. What do? I've got open the tax assessor, I've got open the clerk of court and the Georgia Secretary of State and opencorporates.com. And I'm like, okay, let's look at the incorporators here. Well, one of the incorporators is none other than a local living former U.S. House of Representative. And another one, former military. Another guy was like a tech guy. Well, let's see, another one, rapid fire. Natalie had a 4.5-minute call en route back into Georgia. And that guy that she was talking to off of a website, and I will be 100% transparent because part of Natalie's story is being truthful and being transparent about her. She was doing some, sweet father. I don't know what I can say, what I can't say. So, kind of like that, that she was talking to people off of a website. This guy's in Virginia, Department of Homeland Security employee. The alleged predator that I mentioned that lives local, that Natalie exposed in her private group, former military. I actually believe that he may be a federal employee contractor. The crooked detective that we believe is crooked. I can't get into that right now because that's ongoing and developing. But you have a lot of people with power, and it's so easy to look at Natalie. You look at her face here instead of my face, and you see this girl next door. Like, how could this little Georgia Southern girl, that was living out in Heard County, what did she know? Like, how could she really be exposed to this? She was. There's a lot more to this girl's story, a lot more. And trust me, when I tell you, when this blows up, it'll be the night the lights go out in Georgia. She was exposed to a lot of different players in a lot of different fields. And I really think that she was seen as a liability, and they took her out because of that.
I think that Natalie's case, and I'm going to say this without saying too much, because I don't know what you have revealed and what you haven't, but I think that her case is a really good example of how the media manipulates, like the ones who are consuming what they're putting out there, and a lot of that has to do with, like, the crime scene and stuff like that itself. They didn't accurately report, on her.
Well, there was a lot of it too that was, unfortunately, and that's why that is actually how our community formed, because when Natalie first went missing, a lot of it was based on Facebook, right? Which is kind of the older crowd now, less TikTok, less Instagram, Snapchat, whatever. But there were several Facebooks that were formed, and the main one came from her father's side of the family. Now, a lot of people need to understand that Natalie was raised by her mom. The father's side, she was not close with. There are some questionable people. Her dad, in fact, is rumored to be a pretty big CI out of, and former sweetheart disperser, who his longtime attorney is a pretty powerful political figure and former judge, actually. Just found that out very recently. So, but yes, Natalie, I really feel, knowing as much as I know now, kind of high level here, that things were steered in a certain direction. And now looking at, and really what we've had to do since we've had Natalie's case file is we've been in spreadsheets, because when we get in here, we have to see all this stuff laid out. And I'm going in and showing our other dedicated team, we need to cross-reference what the detective's saying here, what actually happened, where's this, where's that. Like, I'm very analytical. Give me analytics all day. And I have reasonable suspicion to believe that there is some steering of this investigation that happened. There's negligence. And now we're just getting to the point of proving it. Yes, Natalie was bipolar. Yes, she was not on any medication for quite some time. Yes, she may have been doing this on the side, because she is a survivor, and she was paving her way. But that doesn't mean that it's black and white. There are always areas of gray in the middle. And the one thing that I wanted to make very clear and very concise, and that all of our current community members know about Natalie, is telling her story, because we don't have to tell it. She told it. Everything that we upload is her. It's out of her own mouth. It's her story, the things that she's went through, with names kind of edited out and stuff like that. This is her truth, and she was silenced. Potentially that being a reason too, on top of other things. And I just want to say, and I'll hush after this, that they just thought that she was trash. Nobody was going to care. They did not. It's one of those gut feelings, and I'm trusting my gut more now. They did not think that people were going to dig this deep. In fact, one of the most startling things that really felt like a sucker punch to me is there was a team comprised of people, let's just say a group of people that are behind an alias that embedded themselves in Natalie's private group, or all of her groups actually. Within the first week of her vanishing, they got access into her private Facebook group where she was vlogging, exposing the alleged predator, before the detective even did. These people are all affiliated with the Casey Anthony case.
What?
Yeah. And I actually consulted with an attorney last week to say, hey, I have a mild legal background. I can comprehend certain things, but is it true that interference teams are brought in? And they said, absolutely. And I said, so why would a team, a PI, a nobody who's former military with CSI-4, I think it's called, basically intel for the Navy, and recused attorney for Casey Anthony's parents, be brought in to steer an investigation? In fact, Amy, you may remember me telling you about this person, because they are the ones that used one of the civilians that's tied to us, because she's in our community. They wrote out the petition the change.org petition that we use to submit to the DA's office. Because, in the Tri-County area, it's a judicial court circuit. So you've got rotating judges. And, we hand delivered that to the DA's office, as well as the judicial court circuit judge, saying, hey, we want you to impanel a grand jury to look into the involvement of the politically connected TechX. I don't believe that this team was hired in by the TechX. I think he was hired in by the alleged predator, because this alleged predator is allegedly a millionaire. And that makes me start to wonder, what is their intent? Why did they come in and try to muddy the water? Georgia is not a state that you can impanel a grand jury via petition. It's like 5 states nationwide. I never knew that because we were so busy, boggled down and trying to do a documentary and stuff like that. So not that this is why I say there's more than just meets the eye with speculation and conspiracy theories. Like, we've lived it now for 4 years, coming up on 4 years in July. What did Natalie know? I mean, it's wild. So
There's I don't know if you've heard of Jason Jensen, but he's a PI also. And he's always on like court TV and stuff like that. But I talked to him about, random things. And one of the things that he always says, if I go to him and I'm talking to him about any kind of case, his first question is always, who benefits?
Ooh.
100%, who benefits? So what did she know? Who benefits from getting rid of her?
so true. So true. Yeah. This guy, I mean, I think with him, he checks a lot of boxes as far as, you know, we've got multiple eyewitnesses that have stated that they were brought to a motel room where a tripod was set up. He was there, always in a rental car. He's allegedly in the sweethearts business too, and does something with stolen cars. The bottom line here, and I think that this branches out more so with all of these stories, with Heather Turner. There's an element. The commonalities here is you have the perpetrator. In Heather's case, we pretty much can air quote assume who that is. But who are they connected to? What is the benefit here? You know, with Heather, she was getting ready to leave him. With Natalie, she was probably blackmailing some people. And I say good for her. I mean, I hate that it cost her life, but good for you, girl. Like, we will continue to tell your story. And for all the other missing and unalived, in particular, I'll speak for Olivia Fowler. FBI's over her case currently, who vanished in Meriwether County. You have Lauren Henderson, who she was the one found unalived at the commissioner's home right after Olivia Fowler. She was going to talk to Olivia Fowler's aunt about what she believed happened to Olivia. And then she ends up unalived at the commissioner's home. Zero media coverage.
Wow.
The guy that she was dating at the time, Lauren Henderson, it was living with Natalie's most recent politically connected tech ex in early 2020. So there's a big swirl. I mean, there is a big swirl here. And then you have Sydney Kersey, who was found unalived in the woods. And her family feels there are some social overlapping connections with all 3 of these girls. And her family believes that there's corruption going on. Her case is currently with the GBI. And it's like, it's just like, these locals, I feel I don't live there, in these counties. So I'm like, you guys, like, these, they come to us behind the scenes, and it's so much to take on hearing their stories about, like, I just wish I could let my daughter play outside and not fear being trafficked. Or I was a waitress at this place and a table of dirty task force agents came in and I overheard this. Like, I mean, you would not believe, and this is in upwards of 50 plus people at this point saying this stuff. And I think it's a hard conversation to have because in Georgia and in most communities, people are very back the blue. But what I've learned throughout all of this is that men are transactional. It's what they can benefit with. And we all know what a little power does, unfortunately. And I've spoken, I'll go ahead and go on record here and state that I've spoken to some very close contacts of the detective. And when you've got your own blood saying that they had people, blaming them because someone that they are, kin to is steering and leading investigations, you got something wrong there. And Amy, I mean, I don't know if you were able to listen to any of the interviews, but like there's so many leading statements. I mean, they're just like, oh, so, she never had a job, or she did this, or they weren't asking, they didn't care. They weren't probing. And it makes me wonder why. So,
Wow.
Wow.
but yeah, it's going through I believe on a daily basis.
It is. Wow. By the way,
I'm a firm believer.
Max Justice, you have lots of information apparently. I don't even know who you are, but I'm glad to have it been introduced through this anyhow. Um, and if you want to come up and talk, or anybody else, because you never know who has information. That is the one thing I've learned too, is that you will have people who will come out of the woodworks and be like, there's this, and it it may seem like nothing and it may be everything. I don't know.
So, Amy, I have a question. Maybe you could answer this. I stumbled upon some stuff today that, so on the Heather Turner case, um, the day before Heather's death, she was at work. She worked for probate in Paulding County, Georgia, and she was called into the probate judge's office. And the probate judge talked with her, and she told the probate judge that she was leaving her husband the next day. I mean, she specifically said that. But throughout the month of, say, April 4th to May 4th of 2017, there were incidences going on that Heather left a trail, just like Natalie did. Heather left a trail in her through her emails that we have copies of, talking about the abuse, talking about going in and talking to the probate judge, and the probate judge had a deputy in there on record to listen to things that Heather was saying. And I stumbled upon something today that was talking about the fact that who are mandated reporters? If someone comes up to someone, say a judicial figure, a judge, and says this kind of domestic violence is going on in my home. He's got a gun. He's held me down. My daughter's screaming. Got in the room. I was locked out. I was different things. Our judges mandate reporters to um, defects, or to, hey, there's something going on in this home. Police are aware the whole month before, prior to that husband has a gun. There's a gun in the home. There's alcohol going on. There's domestic violence going on. Are there mandated reporters when a domestic violence victim steps up to a
That's a good question. And I don't know the answer to that right off the top of my head. Now, I am a mandated reporter. Um, but and I had to do that whenever I was working, when I was volunteering as a court-appointed special advocate. So I had to go through the training to become one. I would assume that judges are. But again, I'm not going to speak definitively here. But that's interesting when it comes to a domestic violence situation. Um, but I do know who to text and ask that, so I will get you an answer for that tonight.
okay. I just thought that was interesting because a lot of these girls that we're talking about today were in domestic violence situations, just like Heather Turner. It was very obvious she was emails the judge the day before her death. The judge had all of the emails that Heather had written sitting on her desk,
Right.
was reading them, was talking about. Yeah, I mean, that's part of why she was called into the judge's chambers the afternoon before she died, just hours later, by she was found with a gunshot to the head. Um, and so, if they're mandated reporters, and we think about that, why didn't the judicial system, the deputies, the police, the article that I was reading that talked about that, someone who knows about that and mentions it to a mandated reporter, they are they have to do their due diligence to go to someone else and say, hey, go investigate this home. What is the mental attitude of these children? What are different things that are going on in this home? So you've got a judge that clearly knew from April 4th to May 4th, the day she died. You've got deputies who knew. You've got employees who knew. And if they're mandated reporters in defects or whoever to protect the children and women didn't step in to say what's going on in this home. To me, it's like for any of these girls, even if it's not a direct report, if they say to someone that they're being harmed, that's why we call the police. We call law enforcement for protection. We call them because something is going on. And that's just a whole new light this afternoon that I've thought about with Heather's case. So many people that could have, excuse me, could have been mandated reporters didn't report anything, or did they report something? And who dropped the ball on an investigation?
I've looked up mandated reporters, and babysitters, clergy, daycare, dentists, doctors, law enforcement, teachers' aides, other school employees, nurses, other medical professionals, psychologists, social workers, and other therapists. And then like daycares, shelters, clinics, hospitals, schools.
So right there, Robin. I mean that's there. There you go, right there.
That's Jennifer.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jennifer. Yeah, Robin's in the. Sorry, Jennifer. I'm
That's
sorry.
okay. That's
There
okay.
you go, right there. Thank you for looking that up because that answers that question right there. For a month, so many people knew things that were going on with Heather and the violence that was going on in that home. Who was there to protect that children for that month? And were reports made by DFACS on behalf of Heather, because I know that they said Heather actually wrote, they said that she needed to get a restraining order, and she said a restraining order won't stop him. It won't do any good. How many other women are afraid to go to police, but they tell someone else, and then they're a mandated reporter, and it never gets reported, and it never gets investigated. And this is like domestic violence across the board.
Now, I can tell you this. Um, so I know you know a little bit more about this, Mary, but I went through this whole situation with my oldest granddaughter a few months ago. And one of the things that I had to do was I had to make the choice on, am I going to report the fact that, she's here and she has, like they literally just sent her on a one-way ticket to my house and abandon her, or, what do I do? But I made the choice that I had to do that because, and Jennifer, you can look this up too. Um, Mandated reporters, if we don't make the report, we get in trouble. We have the ability to get fined and everything. And the police came out to my house about her to do a check to make sure that she was here. And they turned around and reported her too. So if I hadn't already had my report in, they knew I was a mandated reporter. I could have gotten in trouble. So
It's
it's
a
interesting that
misdemeanor.
nobody's holding them accountable for the fact that they're not doing their part.
It's a
Exactly.
crime and a misdemeanor.
Mhm.
It's a crime, and there you go. And so that's something that's been totally overlooked in Heather's case. And I don't know about on the Bermuda Triangle of the South, Olivia Fowler, Lauren Henderson, Natalie. I don't know in their cases, but I know for Heather, it was documented, and it was documented at the courthouse. The emails were pulled at the courthouse, so that means IT in the courthouse knew about it. The detective who had to escort her husband out of the courthouse literally April 4th, a month to the day of her death, because he was up there with her baby daughter and he was causing problems in probate and had to be escorted out. You've got so many people right there that knew Heather, that saw the situation in action in the courthouse. You've got the second in command of probate because the judge was not in the office. And then you've got the second in command who calls the probate judge and says, "Hey, her husband's up here." And the probate judge, "Get him out of there." It's like, get him out of there. And a deputy escorts him out. So why isn't there being an investigation an entire month before she's found deceased? I mean, I guess my question's going out to
I
folks
don't
that are
know.
listening and to Paulding County. I have so many unanswered questions, but questions I'm going to still keep asking and keep digging into this, because you're right, Amy. I mean, you reported it, then the police came out to check, then they reported it. Um, and people were on top of that situation. And I think had that happened in Heather's case, um, Heather might be alive today.
Yeah.
She was leaving the next day. I mean, had somebody been looking into that, maybe her death wouldn't have happened.
I don't know how that fact alone just gets overlooked. That's the most dangerous time for somebody in a domestic violence situation.
Right.
Exactly. Carrie just said, I pray for that all gets justice. I live in Dallas, Georgia, and know of Heather's story. Thank you for being here. Carrie, I appreciate that. And it's I mean, it's time. This is what we're pushing. I think all of us are pushing for, and why we're all from the Bermuda Triangle to the South to, Jen, to you, Amy, to Jennifer, you, everything that you're doing to help in all of this. I think that's we're just trying to go back and say, wait, things need to change. Things need to be different. Cases need to be reopened. Um,
How
Amy,
about how about we need more uniformity in justice, period? I mean, why are we protecting certain people? Why are we over punishing other people? It's like you can't win in certain situations.
I think
correct.
it's honestly like again, this isn't it's not the most comfortable conversation to have, and we take a little bit more of an aggressive tone with our messaging because we're just fed up with it. I think it's just hypocrisy. It's plain and simple. It's hypocrisy. You see it all the time. Look at case in point. Look at just look at everything that's gone on, across the board. Epstein, Weinstein, Coweta County, Bus, DOD Chief of Staff, sex trafficking. People, it's and having worked in the legal field before, and I mean, heck, you can see it even just going into court. There's a lot of pencil pushing going on. It's slow moving. It's people, it's making it, and Max here in the comments, he's one of our he helps all advocate for all of our communities, and he's really great at keeping us at 50,000 feet, because Lord knows I can get a headache in 1.5 seconds. But and something that he explained to me, I've dated a cop. I support, I'm former military spouse. Like, I'm very patriotic, very back the blue. But I told it, like, we were having a talk one day about corruption as it relates to cops, and he got into the psychology of it, of, well, you have to think about some of them, they're out there on the streets, they they become numb, they become jaded. And the same goes for the detective in Natalie's case. This is a 20-year lifer, special forces, Air Force dude. And I'm like, the uncomfortable thing here is to be honest, which is that I tip my hat to you and your service. I don't tip my hat to corruption. Mm-hmm. I don't tip my hat to you becoming to another police officer becoming numb and not taking a air quote crackhead, or even a woman or a minority or whomever else credible, because you're in the streets all day and you become numb to seeing this, that, or the other. Or, with a lot of the other women in the Bermuda Triangle of the South, including Natalie, maybe she wanted to get away. Maybe she wanted a break. And it's like Nancy Grace said, a break from what? Your towns are not inundated with calls 24/7. These are small rural communities. In fact, like, we have people all embedded. Like, we don't even have to go undercover, because we have like connections all throughout Heard County. And they're like, oh yeah, detective, took a 1.5 lunch hour over here today or whatever. And so it's like, we have to be honest. People have to be held accountable, because with Natalie, with Heather, with Olivia, with Lauren, Sydney, Vince League, all of these people, in any case, nationwide, globally, the people, law enforcement, they took an oath to protect and serve. The sheriffs of these towns are elected officials. I humbly would like to remind them of that. Elected. And I just get very spicy. I'm a super sweet person, I promise you, but I have zero empathy and patience for hearing what you need to be at a therapist's office working yourself through, or better yet, let's impose, or not impose, but let's bring some sort of oversight into, you know, regular checkups with people within law enforcement and government as well. I mean, because it all swirls around one another, and making sure that these people are competent, mentally okay, and are receiving continued training, etc. I remember, I don't know if you ever heard about this case, Amy, but and I'm probably going to butcher it, but there was I think it was, I feel like it happened in Cobb County several years ago, where they had received, I don't know if it was one case in specific, or if it was like a combination of complaints against the police department about, negligence and unforceful use, or whatever it's called. And that, I think it was the police captain signed all of them up for MMA. Because what a lot of people don't realize about MMA, I mean, yeah, it's brutal and this, that, and the other, is like actually, I think it was jujitsu. Because with jujitsu, it's very controlled, and it's an outlet for these people in law enforcement to take out that frustration and do it in a healthy way. Because what jujitsu is all about is, you're being able to block and subdue someone that's potentially attacking you. I took it for 4 years. It's a great self-defense mechanism for women, or anyone really. And that way, like, these cops, they're out in the street, and yeah, they're seeing this and they're seeing that, and it may jade them, or they may get pent up, and they're going home and taking this out on their spouses or children, or someone that's just gone missing. And my whole big message here is, these women and these men, whether it be from the Bermuda Triangle of the South specifically, Heather Turner is like creme de la creme. She's the top of the food chain there. And then, you've got Natalie, who is just, damn, that girl is such a survivor. And she was just like, I feel like she could have done, with the right guidance, could have done some really amazing things in life. They're not dolls that you're trying to find in a ditch. These are people, and their lives could have been saved. And if they couldn't have been saved, the family could have had answers, way before. And all of these families still don't have answers. I've met both of Natalie's sons, and her youngest son is just the sweetest little guy. Him and Natalie have the same smile, and so sweet, so extroverted, but he has a sadness in his eyes. And her older son, I recently met, and I told Mary here, I just like lost my breath, because he looks exactly like Natalie. Had long dark hair, blue eyes, freckles on his nose, and they're hurting because they don't have answers. And so, sorry, I rambled a little bit there, but I think the bigger message here is, we have to be honest about what is actually going on, instead of being like, well, I live in Alpharetta and it's fine over here in Alpharetta. Like, our police department is fine over here. And opening up our eyes to say that all of these communities have beauty in them, and all of these communities deserve better. And it starts with having open and honest conversations about uncomfortable things, and holding people accountable.
I totally agree. That is something that definitely we need more of. We need more of looking into other cases to see how the state meaning the counties, has decided to handle other cases. And like, for example, I'll tell you, in Cobb County, I don't think I've told even you this, Mary, there was a case, I want to say within the past year, where a little boy was allegedly unalived himself. He was like 2 or 3 years old. No, he was two. And he allegedly did it, with a gun. And one of the things that they were given, one of the neighbors who was downstairs actually recorded all of the stuff that was happening in the apartment upstairs and caught the moment that the shot went off. That was turned over. They did nothing with it. They did nothing with it.
Is that incompetence or is that what is that?
Willful ignorance. I don't know.
Well, that goes back to the investigative process.
Like
You know,
the person who recorded it gave the information to me, and I went to my mom, and because my mom works at she probably didn't want me saying this, but I don't care. She works at Wellstar. And so there's always, cops that are in and out. And so I just said, Mom, find one that you can trust who can listen to this so they can kind of tell me what I should do with it. And I followed all of that, and nobody still did anything.
that's a question I have too. When you go back and look at the statistics for the counties, all the counties in all the counties, and you look at the unalive statistics versus the homicide statistics or accidents, and that in itself is going to, how things are reported is going to affect how the money comes into the county from the government to continue what they're doing. And so it's like, what's going to hurt them? What cause of death is going to hurt that county and interfere with some of the funds coming in? How
Right.
much of that is affecting the decisions on investigate and how they're going to investigate and who does what in all these counties?
No, I totally agree. And I agree with you too, Max. I do think it has a lot to do with that. But this was a 2-year old, and, we were expected to believe that this 2-year old, that there was no report of the gun having a hair trigger or anything like that. And so that was something that just, it got me. And then when I listened to, and when I saw there were multiple videos. When I saw those, and I was like, ugh, somebody's got to do something. I mean, I was sick because I knew at that moment, like I knew from the news story and I knew from what I was listening to, that that was the moment that that happened for that child. And I was like, I was gutted.
And how does a 2-year-old get their hands on a gun if a gun is stored properly in a home under lock and key? You know,
Exactly.
it just doesn't make sense. And so for them not to do anything on that situation is just heartbreaking. This is where I think we need to come back to the basics, all the way up from who we put in office in our government, all the way down to our local communities, our sheriff, our
Listen,
coroners, our
you got to get people to care enough about that too, though. I can say that because that I see that with my students. I see that, because people will sit there and say my vote doesn't count, my voice doesn't count, but it does. It does. Even if it doesn't go your way, it still counts. It still lets other people know like we're in this together. And um, you know, and that's one of those things that I think we need more of it. On top of that, more people need to be getting out there and getting into the primaries. People overlook those. People overlook our local elections. Like, I'm like, you guys, the local elections affect you more than anything else.
absolutely, Amy, you're 100% right. It from the local level all the way up to the government. And so many people these days, you're right, just feel like you can see large numbers in a community and you'll see, 10,000 people came out and voted. And where's the other half of the county?
Yeah.
Right.
It just makes a difference. I know for Paulding County right now, Paulding County's having a sheriff's, there's two people that are running for sheriff for Paulding County. Um, the past sheriff, I mean, the current sheriff right now, not the past, he's the current sheriff. Um, it's really interesting over the last, for Heather Turner's case, over the last almost 7 years of deep diving into Paulding County and Heather Turner's case,
Georgia is right now on their third director of GBI. Heather Turner's case specifically is on the third GBI agent for her case. Why are they changing agents so much? Why is there such a turnover? What is going on behind the scenes? The district attorney who actually handled Heather's case for many years was removed from office due to a sexual relations crime in her office, and anybody can look that up. So now we're on the second DA. Now we're on the probate, the probate judge that was over Heather Turner's case, retired from office, and a new probate judge is in. We've got a Superior Court judge that is supposedly retiring, and a new Superior Court judge is going to be appointed. All of a sudden, and maybe it's not all of a sudden, maybe these people were planning to retire, but it's just why. I don't understand. We can't get anything on Heather's case. It has been an open, cold case that has been sitting there um, for almost 7 years, and they say, "Oh, we're just doing more investigation." What
Hey,
investigation are they doing?
Yeah, I want to ask that. Why is it still open? Like, what are they saying if it's still open? They're saying she committed suicide. Why is it still open?
they didn't say she committed suicide.
I
Never. That
well, so they're just saying she just fell
they're
onto a
saying
bullet?
they're saying the GBI medical examiner on Heather's case said that they ruled, the GBI medical examiner ruled undetermined pending further investigation by Paulding County Sheriff's Office.
Okay.
So that means investigate more. But when she died on May the 4th, 2017, and then there are warrants to go collect evidence signed by the judge who's fixing to retire, and maybe a couple of the other judges. But anyhow, um, you got warrants, and they're not even they're dated May the 17th, 13 days after her death. The crime scene was messed up
Mm-hmm.
the minute his parents came on the scene. He called his parents first. They come into the house. They're on the 911 call. And so they're in the bathroom with him. He's supposed to be in the bathroom with Heather on the 911 call. They're in the bathroom. And then you get all these other folks in there. EMS is called at 6:01 in the morning. And the officer in charge said that the scene was completely closed at 9:30 that morning. Three and
Yeah.
a half hours later, everybody leaves the house, and the family has the house. The supposed husband's family cleans up the bathroom that night, and the family enters the house the next day. And then 13 days later is when they go in and start collecting evidence. And then months later, they try to do more investigation in the house where she died. None of that is okay. I mean, that right there, they're not going to find anything. It's already, if she did not unalive herself, then the minute they walked out at 9:30 that morning, I mean, the whole thing is corrupted. The whole crime scene is corrupted. Even if she was staged, even if she wasn't, all of this could have been solved.
So, I have another question.
Yes, ma'am.
When did his parents have a key to his house?
That's a great question, because you're right. On the 911
The
call,
911 call, it's locked. He doesn't tell 911 that he tells me to open it, but he doesn't tell 911 that his parents are coming over. He doesn't need to open the door.
you're exactly right, Jennifer.
I
And
mean,
then all of a sudden, they're just on the 911
they're
call in the back.
there, yeah.
Yes,
And
they are.
and
Correct.
if he was doing this 100 beats per minute, how did he open the door for them?
Well,
Exactly.
listen, we know that that wasn't happening
I
because
know. I'm trying to make my point.
in his book he says he was doing 25 reps
I
and
know.
2 breaths. So he can't be doing both.
And I've
Um,
taken CPR. I know what it takes to do that. He would have been talking on the phone.
so actually, hold on, let me address that alarm thing because I thought it was an alarm too. but I did get verification that it was a sound that came from inside of the 911 center.
Okay.
Wonderfuls.
I
Because
did
the thing
I
is,
did get that because I thought the same thing. Jennifer will tell you, I texted her, I actually texted Mary too, and I was like, am I hearing this? Like, is this when the parents came in? But either way it goes, the parents came in, and I just don't understand being so disconnected from a scene that's going on right there, that it's just like you're talking like it's a, oh, well, it's just a Thursday.
Right.
okay,
No, there's a huge issue right there in front of you, and everything's changing right there in front of you, and you're on the phone with 911 because of this, and I just I was floored at the demeanor.
Yeah.
well, Jennifer, I mean, you're exactly right with CPR. I mean, I'm have been EMS and I've done CPR, and when you do 100 beats a minute for someone, there is no talking. And I mean, I have been in rescue mode where you're trying to save someone's life, and I have been in the back of an ambulance, and I am literally bagging someone to be sure they are breathing. And I can tell you, um, we had somebody driving the ambulance, but I can tell you somebody else was doing compressions. I'm bagging this lady, and we had maybe a 10-minute drive before we got to the hospital with her, even running lights and sirens. And I have no memory of that trip. I was so focused on trying to do breaths for that woman, um, that there is literally, I don't know, I knew what my partner was doing, with the compressions, but there's no memory. I can remember the driver saying railroad tracks, meaning we're fixing to go over railroad tracks. We brace ourselves in the back while we're working on this patient that's coded with us. But there's no memory of anything outside of what you're doing. And then there's another interview where Heather's husband specifically says, as he was doing these compressions and stuff, that he can still taste her blood in his mouth as he was giving her breaths. There's no way, because in that 911 call, he's crying and saying every time he presses down, blood's coming out of her mouth. Well, if you've got fluid in a mouth, there's no way you can do breaths for someone. You've got to clear that airway. That's the first thing you got to do, is clear an airway. She didn't have a clear airway. Heather did not have a clear airway.
Mm.
So, as I don't know, it's undetermined pending further investigation, and he's never been officially questioned. Um,
And did they have a key? Did the parents have a key?
Oh no.
Good question. And really, where was the daughter? Was she asleep on
Oh,
the
yeah.
couch?
Was she
Was
asleep
she
on the
at the
couch,
bathroom door?
or did she meet him at the bathroom door? Which one is it?
And if she's asleep on the couch, she's not going to see her grandparents, or she's sitting on the couch. She's not going
Oh,
to see
now
her
wait a minute
grandparents
though.
walk in the door.
We have a whole thing in here. Because remember, we talked about this the other day, and we talked about the fact that in the book, he says something that is very telling, about all of that. My background, by the way, is I did creative writing and women's studies as my undergrad before I did law school. And my so I pay attention to what people say, and I look at things, as being said and done, like, intentionally. And one of the things that I saw in the book the other day, and I don't I don't know why this ended up passing muster at some point, but um and I hate even bringing this up, because I don't want to sit here and be like, I don't want to sit here and make it sound like I'm saying that the daughter is lying, because I don't think she's lying. I think she has been programmed.
Yeah.
I think that she has been um put in a position to where, I mean, she was young enough at the time that, I think that
Mhm.
that's just the way it was. Oh, and by the way, hold on one second. Um Jen, I know that you said that you have to go, so I just wanted to tell you, you have anything else you want to say, please jump in, because otherwise I'm going to say why I think he's full of crap out of this.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and jump you guys. I've got a live coming up here in 2 minutes. So thank you so much, Amy, for allowing me on here with you guys. And Jennifer, no, so nice to meet you, if I can get my words out right today. Very lovely to meet you, and we'll be happy to go live anytime. So, we're
Yes.
here,
These two stories need to get out there. Everyone needs to hear these two stories.
Yes. Yes.
Everyone.
All right, ladies. Have a good evening.
You
Thanks,
too.
Jen.
Thank
Okay.
you. Bye.
So in his book, it's interesting, okay? Because he says, or no, this is her part. This is in Lexi's part. He says, or she says, he screamed out, "No," and then picked me up and ran and sat me on the couch and said to me, "Mommy is hurt. Don't get up. Don't move." I was confused on why he told me this at the time because I did not know my mother was dead. He called my grandmother. Now keep in mind, she's saying he called my grandmother to come sit with me because he was afraid I would get up and see all of what happened. Then she says, okay, his voice was breaking. So she's saying she's hearing this phone call, right? So
How is she asleep?
I don't understand how we can say we don't know what's happening, okay? Because then he says, or then she says, his voice was breaking. He had tears streaming down his face. After he called my grandmother, he went back into the bathroom and called 911. Now she specifically says, I couldn't hear his conversation. I was confused and wanted to know if my mom was okay. But on the next page, he says, what I did next has ever since obtained me great scrutiny. I called my mother. Mom, who also gets up early to go to work at the courthouse, was up and ready for work and walking out the door when my call came in. She doesn't live far enough from the courthouse to be going to work that early. I have it on record that the courthouse does not open to employees until an hour before. So I don't know why she'd be leaving so early. But nonetheless, he says, Mom, I need you to come here now. Heather has, shot herself. Come sit with Lexi. Now, go back to what she said, because she doesn't say I couldn't hear that conversation. She says very specifically, I heard his voice breaking. He was crying. And then she says later on about the 911 call that she couldn't hear him. So I take issue with that whole line that she's here, she's there. We're being given two different stories and only one of them makes sense. Whenever one of the things that we, do, like legal wise, when I talk to like my students and I teach them the things, I'll tell them, if there is a 911 call, if there is an early report, if there is an early like witness statement, something like that, something that's closer to the time, that's probably going to be more accurate. And on that phone call, he says, she's in the other room asleep. We also do not hear her crying. You cannot convince me that you would not hear her crying if she thought something could possibly be wrong. You cannot convince me that she wouldn't be saying, knocking on the door incessantly, saying, what's wrong with mommy? Anything like that. You can't convince me that wouldn't happen.
Right.
No. I mean, you take any 8-year-old child and all of a sudden stuff's going on in their home. If she's overhearing, if you got an 8-year-old child that's seeing a parent on the phone and they're crying and their voice is breaking, that child's going to be upset. That child's not going to understand.
But we hear nothing,
Nothing.
nothing at all about her,
No.
except for the fact that she's in the other room asleep.
Right.
That's all we hear.
But then his story, and we've got multiple accounts of that morning, and we've got those from social media where he has actually posted himself on social media, or he's been on a news camera stating, no, we met at the bathroom door at the same time. That's what he talks about in his book. We met at the bathroom door.
But I
Um,
also don't understand that because that whole thing is about, well, I thought it was the shower rack that fell. Okay, well, if you thought it was just the shower rack that fell, then why did you go running?
exactly.
Why?
That's exactly right. That's it. None of the stories make sense, and there's
Mhm.
multiple stories from that morning. Stories that he's posted, stories that he has actually put when he's been interviewed by news crew. He'll go on camera. He'll go on public television and speak, but he won't go to Paulding County and answer their questions.
No. And speaking of Paulding County, since we've got a couple people in here who live in Paulding County too, I take great issue with some of the things that are continuing to be uncovered because I want to know how many of you people heard about the case of William Dunmire.
Oh, please jump into that, Amy. That's really really
I need to know because I never heard of it.
Mm-mm.
And I have a lot of issues with that particular case because that was a case where you have this 5-year-old little boy who is unalived by his stepfather. And I will be happy to go in and pull up all of the stuff and put it on my social media so that you guys can read through it. But listen, the stepfather unalived this child, and the stepfather was originally charged with malice murder, felony murder, and felony child endangerment. Was it? I think it was.
yes, I think so.
So he ends up getting a plea deal under Dick Donovan. Okay. When he gets his plea deal under Dick Donovan, he ends up getting his malice murder. It's just dropped. He gets the felony child endangerment dropped down to a misdemeanor child endangerment, and then he gets his felony murder is dropped down to second degree murder. But what is so astounding about this particular case is when you look at what he was actually sentenced to, because his sentence for the misdemeanor child endangerment was 5 years to run consecutively with the murder charge, and the second degree murder, he was given, this is so gross, he was given 20 years of probation, serve 5. And that's that 5 for the or for the misdemeanor. Okay?
Okay. Yes.
And let me tell you, one of the things that makes it even more disgusting is when you look in the DOC's files and you see that he's not even going to be serving out even the 5 years. That child's life wasn't even worth a year for a year. There was no tit for tat. He's getting out in under 5 years. And Mary, why did he get that kind of a deal?
Because his mom worked for Dick Donovan. His mom worked for the DA's office.
Bingo.
His mom worked for the DA's office. She sure did. She was employed there. And okay, a little bit more research on my end on that case. They pull in an attorney, not an attorney, a judge from Douglas County to come in and preside over that case, right?
Yep.
They pull him in from another county to preside over that case, and then boom, he's gone again. So it's not any of the judges in Paulding County. They pull somebody else in to handle this case, right? And
Yep.
could that be because it's a conflict of interest? The mom works for the DA's office, so we need to pull in another judge.
Yep.
But then, as you were telling me stuff, Amy, as you were reading some of the stuff, how many things were suppressed that the judge couldn't even hear because this man admitted to murder to the judge. He took a plea deal, which meant that I don't know this because I'm not a lawyer, but a plea deal means you're not going to have a jury. The judge is just going to tell you what your sentence is. It's not going to be a jury of the peers. It's not going to have 13 people there. None of that's going to happen. Uh,
Right.
and so there you have it.
And that's true. Part of the plea deal process, by the way, I'm not a lawyer either. Part of the plea deal process is they create a contract with the state. It lays out the conditions that they have agreed to. And then what they end up doing is they go before the judge and they basically state, like, yes, I did this. And a really good example of this is watching Dennis Rader. He was the BTK serial killer, because he goes in and he like tells in detail what it is that he did. And, and then he goes through the process of, taking his deal. But that's what happens. So there is no jury, and they get booted out because there's no need for one.
Well, and so there you go. So all the judges have clean hands in Paulding County, but the judge that comes in is, yeah, exactly, quotes, um, on this particular case. But this guy, no, mom works for Dick Donovan, and yes, she is fired because she won't leave the stepdad who admits to unaliving her 4 or 5 year old son, this little child, by a blow to the back of the head. And it just does not make sense. None of it.
20 years of probation. How
Yes,
many other people have they sentenced for murder that went for life or whatever? And one of the things that we always hear is that in prison, they don't like the people who are there for, hurting a child.
Right.
correct.
But yet the
They
system was
get
just
the
like,
least time.
oh, it was just a child. Go ahead.
Yeah, they get the least time. They give pot dealers more than that.
You're right, Jennifer.
I mean, it is ridiculous. Like, you can steal a Lamborghini and get 20 years.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right. You're exactly right. I mean,
But this is the county we live in, and this is the county that's dealing with Heather's case and so many other cases. And in all honesty, I can't even sit here and go, I don't understand why this is happening, because I do understand. I don't agree with it. I don't understand like how they got their methodology, but I understand it's because these people are following this whole set of rules that they've created for themselves.
exactly. Exactly. And so when does it come back, as we were talking about earlier,
I don't know.
to the oath that each person took when they came into office
I
to
say,
protect, to serve, their morals, their values? When did they lose their individual, um, their individual, um,
I think what happens is they get into the job and they realize they're putting their life on the line every day for $40,000 a year.
yes,
And no
I don't think you're wrong about that either.
let's not forget no respect. It's like they pinned everybody as, this kind of, cops as this kind of people, so they get no respect and they make no money.
Right.
I agree.
The
I
only way
agree.
to get ahead is to steal from the evidence box.
Now, I did read in reading up on this judge who came in for this particular young man, that Amy, the case that we're talking about right now, that judge was making $176,000 a year.
I believe it.
Yeah,
And he's now the head state judge or something like that.
yeah, yep, he is.
Wow.
Governor Kemp. So a lot of these go back. Governor Kemp appointed Matthew Rollins. He's the DA right now. Um, you know, it's just,
That's concerning. I'll tell you that's concerning, and I'll tell you why. I heard today that red bottom shoes are linked to trafficking.
agreed. I totally agree with you, Jennifer. I have heard that same thing.
I mean,
And
I'm a little conspiracy theorist, but I'm also like, where's the connection between, he says he has all these friends in Hollywood. We all know what Hollywood is. then all these people in Paulding County are being appointed by Kemp. I don't. This is
Listen,
all.
let's back up and specify here or clear this up because he doesn't have all of these friends in Hollywood. If you go and look at um stuff that he has like all over social media and stuff, like for example, he's got a picture of Jennifer Lopez, and on one of his captions, he puts on there date night as if it's like he's going out on a date with her. No.
Yeah.
Like that's not happening. You know, it's a lot of going to like meet and greets where he's getting pictures signed and stuff like that or getting things signed, and then he is turning around and using that as like his proof.
Right.
Right.
He can
That's
also, I think at the meet and greets, you can also pay. One of Heather's best friends is Joni Miller, and Joni is a fiance to Jeremy Miller, and he played Ben on Growing Pains for anybody that remembers that show. So that's actually how Joni and Jeremy met Heather and AT. And so that was explained to me that Jeremy goes out and does meet and greets, and he was a child star. People pay to come do the meet and greet with them, and he will sign autographs for them, and he's got stuff that they can take, pictures of him, pictures of whatever. But then they can also pay to have pictures taken with them on what appears to be the red carpet, on what appears to be a place. And so when you go to
really
celebrity signings and you pay this large amount of money to go in, yeah, you meet the celebrity, sure you do. And you can pay to have a picture made with them. And
Wow.
then so if you look at all, I'm not saying he didn't, I don't know 100%, but I know a lot of I I don't know. I'll stop right there.
Oh,
That
well, I'll take it a step further because one of the things that I think a lot of people don't know, which definitely was not covered in this book, is the Chattahoochee River Music Festival,
oh,
which
okay.
was
Is that
fire.
the?
It
That's
what?
the one that he. That's the one that he uh, defaulted on or whatever.
That's the one where they were claiming that they were doing this music festival with, Alan Jackson and a whole bunch of other people. And they were taking, like there's a lawsuit out there from Atlanta Beverage for $300,000, for the money that they gave to be the exclusive beverage provider for the event. I mean, it's literally like that Fire Island before Fire Island.
The thing is about that, Amy, right? You're exactly right with that music festival celeb scene. Is who was doing it, and y'all can Google that. The thing about that is Budweiser. I believe it was Budweiser had the suit against them for like $300,000. Um, for the beverages that they were provided, but the whole thing caved. People
Mhm.
didn't come. People didn't get paid. Budweiser was one of them, and Budweiser had that lawsuit. The thing is, and this is another thing I question, or for me personally, I question is, um, if you look, anybody can go to clerk of the court for Paulding County because they are online. If you look at the celeb scene and you look at the charges from Budweiser, they expired. They expired, I want to say January a year ago or this past January. I'm not sure which, but they expired, which meant Budweiser no longer can have their claim against him because time ran out on the time that they had to do it. And so he just got away with owing them $300,000, and the time ran out.
I'm sure
Well,
that's what he was hoping for.
Well, I mean, but why would I mean? Granted, Budweiser's got a ton of money, and I'm not trying to bring Budweiser per se into this, and I don't want to get us in trouble for that. But
Right.
literally, it's like why if and why his partner who was in on this, his partner spent time in jail. His partner was questioned. His partner went through
horrible things because of celeb scene and the things that happened. And yet Heather's husband was the one who was handling all the finances for this promotion, for this thing that they were doing. And then he's not ever taken in. He's not seen jail time. How investigated is he on all of this? And then why is Budweiser walking away from $300,000 for letting their time expire on that?
Maybe they felt like well, actually, let me take that back. So I can tell you, one thing that does happen with like debts, a lot of times people will, or companies will go and get judgments so that they can turn around and sell them, but they don't actually intend to collect on themselves.
Oh, well, that makes sense. Thank you, Amy.
I
'Cause-
only know that because there's a whole credit repair thing that I can talk about one day too. um, that's a whole thing. But anyhow, that's one of the things that people or that these companies will do is they'll go and they'll in order to get the money, it's a two-step process anyhow because they have to go through the garnishment phase, get the judgment, or the I'm sorry, they have to go through the judgment phase, get the judgment, and then they have to go through a garnishment hearing to get the garnishment, or the lien or whatever it is that they're going to do, to get their money. But a lot of times companies will just get through that first phase and then they turn around and sell it to somebody else. They may do it to just write it off their books, things like that.
Correct. Well, that makes a lot of sense.
I hope they sent him a 1099 though for that money.
Well, and if you're in a situation like that and you file bankruptcy, um, can you write that off in a bankruptcy? I don't
I don't
know.
know.
I don't know the answer to that one, but I there's just so many questionable things. For me, so many questionable things with Paulding County and the way they are, and have been handling Heather's case. And this is just not fair to family and friends. And one of the biggest things for me is Heather. Heather is not just a name. She's not just a pretty face. Heather had goals. There you go, bankrupted twice in the last 5 years. I didn't think you could have a bankruptcy but once every 6 or 7 years. And Heather's husband has bankrupted twice in the last 5 years.
I don't know. I've never looked that up, but I will.
Robin was just posting in the comments that he bankrupted twice in the last 5 years. I don't understand how you can do that, but I don't know. He just seems to do a lot of things I don't understand. Um,
Oh my God. Don't even get me started about these cars.
and owns 18 cars
Yeah.
and is showing them.
Listen, I went to his last book signing because I was curious. I'd been following like how, he would post on like social media and stuff like that, and he would never ever show like the audience. Like he would never show like, this line that would be like waiting for him or anything, but it was always like, with captions that talked about like what an amazing turnout it was and things like that. So I went to his last one. And there was nobody there, and the whole time that I was there, my husband even asked me. He was like, "Are you gonna go over and like say something to him?" I was like, "No," and he was like, "Why not?" I said, "I'm not even gonna give him the opportunity to say somebody talk to."
No,
But I was just like, and I said on top of that, I would honestly go like sit down and be like, "Hey, let's talk about this. Like, why did you write this and that's not what you said on like the 911 call? And, you know, why did you say that you were um why did you say that, they took pictures of you that day and that's not what happened according to the other documents? How can you sit there and say things like, "Oh, she was never leaving me." We never talked about that because that's totally what people who are in abuse situations do. They clearly go and say, "Oh, hey, I'm leaving." That stuff just doesn't make any sense.
no. But I mean, she was leaving. The thing is, he got into her email because she specifically states that. And this is right around April 4th, a month to the day of her death, of 2017. And she specifically says he got into all my deleted emails. He got into all of my emails. He's read everything that I've been in her personal account. And she even talks about the fact that her personal Facebook account was never her account. She was never the one to post on it. He posted on her behalf. And while we're talking about this, we've got a nanny um, that, and say the nanny that came in 2 to 3 weeks right after Heather passed away, and he asked the nanny to go on a cruise with him. It was a cruise Heather and he had supposed to been taking. Um, and so the nanny has been sharing her story on TikTok, and I think Amy, you're going to be getting with her pretty soon, and that's just going to be very, very informative because she is really speaking her truth from a domestic violence standpoint, and I really, really appreciate the fact that she's using her voice. Um, I think she's been in the chat here today. I appreciate her jumping on and seeing what's being said, but she's just got so much to share, and it'll really be uh, informative
It's
for
very
folks to
good.
jump
I'll
on.
tell you, she's got a lot to say, and she's got receipts. Like she has proof of everything she's saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
It's insane. I mean,
It's
the
nuts.
the stuff that is talked about, I mean, we see things talked about more by her. Like she'll say things about like the ashes, the whole thing about he
Yeah.
wanted me to hold the ashes, so it'd be like he was, having sex with us both. And that is like, what? But then there's other stuff that's just as like alarming too when you start thinking about like, the whole entire case and the way he treated these women like property.
Yeah.
They're just, I don't know. And I
And
don't know how he gets these women.
I don't either.
Every
And
single one of
that's
them
not
is
going to
gorgeous.
change with this new one. He didn't get therapy.
No.
Like that's not going to change. Like we're going to be reading about her in the newspaper.
I hope that is not the case. I really hope that something really and truly gives with that, because that just but history does repeat itself.
It does. It does.
Exactly.
It does.
Exactly. And that's been, I mean, I've already seen pictures that have been posted by him on his social media pages where she's got bruises from head to toe.
Seen him. I've seen him.
Yes. Yeah, Jennifer. I mean, uh,
And it's almost it's shocking that knowing what we know that the new wife would even allow them to be seen. That does not make sense to me. Like, what are you trying to get our attention? Like, are you trying to let us know?
But see, I
It's
think that's part of it. I think the part of it is the thrill of knowing that, like, people, they're seeing this, they know this. But you know what? He still controls the narrative because he's putting it in places that he can delete comments and he can, take away any kind of negative, things that are being hurled their way.
and unfriend
right.
you, block you, and yeah,
And he can block comments. I mean, a
yeah,
lot
Yeah.
of the when he posts something, he will turn off comments so that nobody can comment,
yeah.
or call him out on something. But it's just it's my heart then goes back once again, circles back around, which it always does, to the children in that home,
Yeah.
to Heather's daughter, and it's been almost 7 years. Just like Amy was saying, and I'm sure Jennifer, you're following right with this of what has she been told? What has she been told so repetitively that she believes? Um, he has had, from what it appears to be, according to the nanny, he has had complete control. I know with Heather, the things that she left as her voice coming back for us now to read through her emails. Um, she wasn't allowed to be with her family. She wasn't allowed to have friends. She had to wear the red bottom shoes. He told her when she could eat and when she couldn't. Uh, he made her hair appointments for her. He took her to her hair appointments. He sat beside her. He didn't just sit across the room and watch her get her hair done. He sat beside her for her hair appointments. Um, he, uh, she's working on a flower bed in her yard,
and somebody comes down the road, she's not allowed to acknowledge that person. She doesn't look up. That's not the Heather that we knew. The Heather that we knew is vivacious and friendly and loving and kind and never meets a stranger and would wave at anybody going by or talk to people. That's Heather. And Heather's working in a flower bed and cars go by or somebody walks by and she doesn't acknowledge and she doesn't look up, and she is forbidden to do that. And yet um he's out of town on a work trip and somebody drives by and she looks up and she'll smile and she'll wave. It's almost like you could tell when he was out of town and when he wasn't out of town because of the behavior, the dominance, the control. And the control over Heather goes down to the control over the children. And then we go into parental alienation, which is huge because he was married prior to. Um, he never, his children that came to stay with him on his time to have them. Um, there's the ex wife has a case of one of the worst parental alienations that um, one of the lawyers has ever seen. Um, it's the brainwashing. It's the nanny can talk a whole lot more about that, but literally that's what happens in a domestic violence situation. And I think this is probably one of the worst ones that I've ever seen. Um, but yet Heather was fighting back, and Heather was leaving. She was leaving. She had her date set, and he knew what her date was. I mean, he knew it. He knew when she was leaving, and her email literally says, one of her emails literally says in the paragraph in the email that he tells her, "I will see you buried before I will sign divorce papers."
Yep. I think he learned from the first one. I think that, he
Yeah.
realized what happened with her and he wasn't going to repeat it.
And that's why I think that because he's gotten more brazen and more ballsy, I mean, she's in danger.
Absolutely.
I mean,
This new one,
she
this
is
new
in
one,
danger.
yes. Where's her son? I mean,
Right.
the nanny admits that her children weren't allowed to come over. Um, this new lady in his life, um, her husband died from an illness, terminal illness, and she and her son had to go through the death um, of him. And within 6 months, here we go. I know Kelly, and she is very smart, but she is very passive and submissive, or she was with Boomer. Okay, Boomer was her husband who died. Thank you, Amber Rose, for sharing that. That's my concern for Kelly, um, his new wife, because she and her son went through the death of her husband, Boomer, and approximately, give or take, 6 months later, she gets up with Andy, and when she's with AT, and when she's with AT, um, now her son's not in the picture. Where's her son?
Hey, you know what else wasn't in the picture?
What's that?
The house. The house that happened to catch on fire while she happened to be in the shower.
You're exactly right. Her house that Boomer made sure she had so that she was taken care of and her son was taken care of. They didn't have any worries because they knew he had a terminal illness. They had the plans in place, and she was still staying at her house a good bit with her son. And that's where she was having to leave her son to go see AT at his house with his children. And she was leaving her son behind. And you're right, her house burns while she was in the shower.
Okay, so she was in the shower of the same house that was burning down.
Her son happened to be upstairs, smelled the smoke, went down and got his mama out of the shower and said, "Our house is on fire." And the two of them got out of the house and called the fire department, and her house burns down. And so then they don't have anywhere else to go. So then they both have to move in with AT and his children. And then they both move into that home. And now, where's her son?
So, is there any information on the fire?
Yes, I have the report.
Okay.
You're
I'll
so,
send it to you.
you're so good. Yeah.
But I like I knew this because Amy told me, but I'm still like in shock because it's like, was he trying to kill her already?
No, I don't think that was the case. I think it was a matter of I think he
Wanted to
wanted
burn
to
it down so
control where she was.
the son could go somewhere else and she could come there eventually.
Well,
Eventually, that's what
they both ended up going there. Um, and then you got COVID going on, and you got, everybody's doing stuff from school and home, and yeah. So then her family, or his family, anyhow, yeah. It's hard for me to go with the children thing, but it's like none of this is okay. He's
Mm-mm.
still got his children, but where's her son? I can tell y'all her son's not missing. Her son is in a safe place. Um, I can reassure you that. I've prayed over that for the last 2 years, and I know for a fact her son is in a safe place right now, but he's not with his mom. He's not with his mom at all. And you
Well,
have
and how do you
a,
think that affects him though? Because think about it. If you know what happened to Heather and you know what like went down and stuff like that, that has to be so emotionally taxing on that little boy too, because it's like, how do you not have that like nagging feeling that one day you're going to be like getting the news about your own mom?
exactly. That's exactly right.
um,
And I'm sure this young man is doing everything he can to protect his mom. I mean, this is his mom. He just lost his dad several years back, and what's happening to his mom and what happened to him while he was in that home. I don't know.
it's unreal, y'all. That is unreal.
It is.
That is
It
just,
is.
I,
And don't think reports haven't been made to the detective over and over and over. And AT states in the book he wrote, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Amy, that defects was called 300 times or something in one spot of that book. He says that. I think if defects was really called 300 times, then I would start questioning defects in that area. If they're called 300 times and they have to do 300 investigations on that house, on that family, wouldn't you think something would be done by now? I mean, 300 times to me is an extravagant amount, but I don't know.
There's another thing that we haven't ever really talked about and let out like publicly, but I know that I think you've told people about the mom's name being the complainant on the police report, right?
I don't know that I've gone into that. That's on the page. We've put that out on the page some. Okay, so what that situation is, you have a police report, and a lot of that, the time's coded. So on the police report, Paulding County says, he states to a reporter on the news that she gets up between 5 and 6 in the morning, goes in to get her shower. He hears a noise, goes in, and he finds her. Paulding County's CAD sheets from that morning states that the time of her event was 5:30 a.m. Latest possible time is 6:13 a.m. 6:13 a.m. is when EMS arrived. EMS was called at 6:01 a.m. Okay, so now we've got Paulding County saying 5:30 in the morning. It's like, where did 5:30 come from? EMS is not called until 6:01. EMS arrives on scene at 6:13. It's a 14-minute 911 call, so they're hanging up with 911 as EMS is walking into the house. Um, okay, and then you have AT is a complainant because it goes on to the second page and it's like AT is a complainant, which means he made the 911 call. His mom is listed as a complainant. Complaint.
So I contacted Gary Gullidge, who's the sheriff, and I sent an email that was like, hey, just curious, if somebody, makes a 911 call, are they the one that's listed as the complainant, or will it just be anybody that you've talked to, during that time period? So he sent me over to, and I can post all this too. He forwarded it over to, I guess, the person who does like their operating procedures. And she contacted me back and she said, whoever's the complainant is the one who called. But she made it very clear that they could have called the non-emergency number.
So his mom is listed as a complainant who's in the bathroom on the 911 call. His dad is listed as just as a person that's there, and Heather is listed as a victim.
Right.
There's 4 people listed on Paulding County's CAD sheet for that morning. And then they're saying that the scene was closed by Officer Bradbury. The scene was closed by 9:30 that morning. But so that shows 2 complainants, right? Which
Mm-hmm.
means 2 people called somebody.
Mm-hmm.
We know AT did on the 911 call. We have
Right.
that. There is nowhere, nobody, no FOIA request has been responded. There's no official 911 call. I mean, I've called, I've asked for the Freedom of Information Act requests and gotten every one of the calls for like a 12-hour period around the time that Heather died. Not one of those calls related to Heather's address or Heather.
And I reached out to see if they log the non-emergency stuff. And the response back to me was, which non-emergency number?
There you go. So where is that other call? And there was who called at 5? Where did the 5:30 time come from?
I don't know.
Was that when someone is that when a non-emergency call came in at 5:30? And if that's the case, was somebody alerting somebody else that that Heather had been found deceased? And if that's the case, why was the 911 call not until 6:01? Official 911 documented because 911 has their documentation on their CAD sheets, and their CAD sheets definitely say the call came in at 6:01 point like 24 seconds.
Right.
They're down to the second.
And
Here's another thing that's not been touched on. I don't know if you're ready. If you still want to talk about that, we can, Amy. I was just thinking. Here's another thing that's not been talked about very much. Heather, when she was young, her upper teens, she found her mom. Her mom had been sick, and she found her mom deceased. Heather had to live her entire life, her 35 years, from the time she was like 19, knowing that she had found her own mom. And she had to reconcile some way to continue living with that in her life. And her grandfather and her aunt became very, very close in her life because her mom and dad had divorced.
just to specify, when she found her deceased, she had unalived herself.
She had been taking medicine because she had been sick. So I don't know if she
maybe took too much medicine at that time. I don't know if it was a purposeful unaliving. I'm not really sure just from the family's viewpoint. I'm just telling you the inside viewpoint on the family's end. So
Gotcha.
I can't specifically say that that was an unaliving. I think AT has really said that her mom unalived herself and has really pointed that out to different people, but I don't think that was 100% the case because her mom had been sick and was on medication. So maybe she was drowsy. Maybe she didn't know how much medicine she was taking. I'm not exactly sure what took her life, but Heather was the one that found her, um, and had to live her life that way. And her mom and dad had been divorced, so Heather was very, very, very close to her aunt and her mom's sister and her grandfather. And all these years, her grandfather was like a second dad to her. And her aunt was like this second mom to her that she had. And Heather knew what it was like to live with finding a parent, which Heather, I believe that's one of the strong things that Heather would not have unalived herself. Um, she wouldn't do that to her daughter.
Let's
But
clarify also, she probably would not have done it naked.
naked, absolutely. Naked, wet, shower still running, none of that makes sense. But the thing is, Heather's grandfather dies. And she's got an email talking about the fact that that it was a really hard day for her. Her grandfather had passed away. He was being cremated. I believe he's being cremated. And they were going to be having a service in the next week or two, for her grandfather, and she was sharing that personal information with someone. And before they could have her grandfather's funeral, Heather passes away, and Heather's funeral is before her grandfather's. And then the family has to do the grandfather's funeral or their father's funeral. They have to bury Heather first. No way.
Right.
This
Heather wrote about that her grandfather that she loved so dearly, um, had passed away, and she was grieving over that, but not grieving to the point of she's going to unalive herself. She's grieving and making plans to attend his service.
But that follows his narrative though, because his narrative is in one breath, it is to paint her as so happy she was making me my favorite meal that of course I'm going to document and blah 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 blah. And then he turns around and says, "Oh, but she was, her grandfather had just died and she was just so depressed and, you can't have your cake and eat it too."
Exactly. You're exactly right. So, and yes, he did. He used that. He said, "Oh, she was depressed. Her grandfather died, like
Mhm.
he said, blah blah blah." And no, no. Heather was making plans to attend her grandfather's. Her grandfather is actually who saw he saw Heather. She had At had bought her a gun, and excuse me, the gun was sitting on the passenger seat of her car, and her grandfather walked out and saw that, and her grandfather said, "What are you doing?" He went and bought her a case to put that gun in, her 38 in, and told her where to keep that, where it was secure and put up. I don't know if she had just gotten it and that's why it was laying in the seat of the car, but
Right.
it's like, but she wasn't able to see them very much. I don't know how long she had that. I just know that's one of the stories that the family was able to share with me, that her grandfather literally bought a safe container for that weapon to be in where Heather could access it, but it was going to be safe for her to keep that in her car. And he
Right.
was telling her where to put it, the guidance of a father, her daddy, her grandfather.
And in terms of that whole gun thing too, I know that it's knowledge that he had posted the whole like the family who shoots together stays together, and that whole thing is extremely creepy because when he posted that originally, I think it was what, 2015 or something like that. It was a couple years before when he posted that with pictures of him and her at the range, but then he happens to reshare it hours before, she's unalived.
Yes. Hours before the family that shoots together stays together. Pictures of her at the gun range, pictures of him at the gun range. But I can tell you this, he was specifically at the gun range on May the 1st, 2017.
Right.
He was practicing shooting on May the 1st.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
Oh, but y'all, I need to jump off. But it was so good talking to y'all.
Jennifer, you've been amazing.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you.
let's do this again this week. Because my teaching schedule is light this week because I have meetings this week during the day. So
Well,
I'm
yeah, when it
available.
to come, I would love to have more people from the Justice for Heather page.
I'll figure out how to make it so that it goes to all of the platforms.
If we could, and that way people could ask questions.
I'll also try to figure out how to save this one and give it to you so it can go up over there.
Okay, yeah, that'll be great. That will be great. We'll get it on that page. And Jennifer, thank you for everything that you've
Thank
done.
you. Thank
Uh,
you. I mean, you're keeping this alive, and we want to help you keep it more alive.
well, I really,
No, we want to get it closed.
yes, we do.
Oh yes, yes,
Either way, I mean, if we can
yeah,
get it closed, then we can get the documents and we can find out what's kept it open for 7 years. There's too many things that are not answered, and maybe that's something else that needs to be changed somehow, um, with our legal system, because the family is left reliving their loved one's death every single day. And when you go through that 7 year, I cannot imagine a week, much less going on 7 years.
I
yeah,
agree.
It's just not just for Heather's case, for any of these cases.
yeah. I'm working on another case where a 19-year-old girl's been missing since 2012.
Oh,
Oh,
hey,
Yeah,
that's in Mary's playground.
it's in Mobile.
wow.
Yeah. So 12 years. 12 years. May 30th.
Well,
I'll,
Jennifer,
I'll have to hook you guys up to talk one day.
yeah,
Yeah.
I started to
Yeah.
say, Amy, you'll have to set us up. That would be awesome. But I
It's
really, really appreciate you guys all coming on. I appreciate the viewers who have been listening, and my concern is for a lot of women that are out there.
me
Please
too.
be aware of domestic violence. Please be aware of um, please be aware of dating sites. Please be aware of someone that you're going to meet up. Please do research on them. Uh,
Yes.
please do that. And if you're in a domestic violence situation, please don't be alone. Please reach out to someone. Please let someone know. Um, it's please let someone know.
Yes.
You
Even if
can't
it's
get
one of
out.
us.
You can't get away.
And tell you can call us, like Amy
Yes,
said. Call one of us. Call one
absolutely.
of us. We'll help you figure something out.
Message the page. Message Amy Ray
Yep.
Davis. Message
Justice
two
for Heather Turner.
message Justice for Heather Turner. Private message. You'll be safe doing that. Um, and we will help you figure something out. There is a way out for domestic violence victims, and it
Yep.
doesn't have to be the way that Heather got out.
100%.
It does
Absolutely.
not. So I'm very, very thankful. And please, those of you who pray, please say a prayer for Kelly, the
Yes.
current the current woman in AT's life, and for the children, um, and for our the sheriff's election that's going on.
Yeah.
That's gonna be a big that the people of Paulding County citizens are going to be able to make a choice, as to what happens to the future to
True.
all these cases.
I would like to throw Christy in there too for keeping her safe too.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yes,
Absolutely.
please. Yes, Christy, the nanny.
The more she talks, the more she becomes a target. If the closer you get to messing up a perfect situation for these people.
Right. But we're just, we're going to keep her safe. The more people that see her story, the safer she's going to be, in my opinion. So good for her for speaking out. And for anybody, if you're hearing this and you know someone in a domestic violence situation, please have them reach out to any of us. Or there's a domestic violence hotline you can call. Um, there are ways, there are answers.
Yeah,
You don't be alone. Please know that we care what's going on.
absolutely.
Thank you for joining Guided by Angels. We appreciate you very much.
Yes, all of you. Thank you.
Yes,
And
very
we'll
much.
talk. I'll talk to both of you.
All right, Amy. Thanks for having us on. You're amazing.
Thanks for being here. And this is my first time, so
Oh, you did wonderful. You did great.
I didn't have too many problems.
Look, 14.5 thousand hearts.
I know, that's amazing.
It's wonderful. You did great.
I didn't even have a proper caption on here. I forgot that it said something like just testing my connection.
Oh no, you've done amazing. So
Um, all right. Well,
thank.
have a good night. We'll talk.
Okay, thanks
Thanks, guys.
everybody.
Bye.